Awakener, page 32. No, I lied. I hate starting conversation off with a lie, so I reboot. Take next. That's my take. Okay. Page 34. Chapter 3. Okay. In the current third dimensional reality on Earth, one learns compassion and understanding and love through experiencing every conceivable situation in life, ranging from poverty and struggle to wealth and power. This involves learning to rise above the limitations set by ourselves prior to the incarnation, thereby gaining strength and wisdom. Finally, as you cease to judge and realize that I am my brother's keeper, and that in truth every form of life is a brother, you can move to a place of peace and unconditional love. So we experience all the versions. So we are the victim, we are the abuser. We've been every race, we've been poverty and wealth. We experience all of that in different lifetimes, but all those lifetimes are going at one time in different dimensions. And we won't get into the Mandela effect at this point, but timelines collapsing are all of these different lives that we've lived out, and every infinite potential kind of collapsing into what we want. And so we're conscious in this present moment now, so we get to choose now. But we've experienced all aspects of it. So when we're judging someone in their situation, we've literally been there, whether we remember it or not. Much of humanity now feels that they have learned sufficiently in this realm, and would choose to release the various patterns belonging to limiting learning and move on up to higher levels of learning. Learning goes on through higher dimensions, but it is through greater harmony and less solid types of experience. While joy and peace can be found in the third dimension, they are a matter of course on the higher dimensions. So that's awesome. Yeah, like I tell people that, even when it's good here, sometimes it feels like it's bad. And so we're striving for joy. But as we move to the fifth dimension, joy is all the time. So we won't be experiencing so much contrast, and we'll move into learning new things. And feeling joy. Joy will be more of a natural state. Everyone is now making a choice. As the planetary vibrations continue to increase, all old rigid structures and systems across the Earth either change their basis of operation to one of love, or they crumble and cease to be. All buried thought and emotion is being released individually, nationally, internationally, and planetarily. All remaining karma is being balanced out across the face of the Earth, and everyone who chooses love is lightening up as the vibration moves higher and higher into the highest of frequencies. And it says lightening up with a dash because we're getting more light. It is time to step free of fear and the myriad of belief patterns that keep us so boxed in a world of structure and control. Time to move forward in trust and faith, knowing there are worlds beyond what we can see with our eyes. Planet Earth offers learning through limitation. This means that one limits oneself and then grows in wisdom and strength by rising above the barriers that are put up. Humanity has excelled in this by taking limitation to its extreme. Millions of limiting patterns have been introduced into society. Man now no longer has any idea that he creates his own reality and his world, and that he is actually a child of God, connected to everyone and everything. He limits himself with ideas, such as one needs money, food, water, or shelter in order to survive. A predominant pattern on Earth involves the vulnerability of the body, like beliefs that you can get ill if you eat the wrong food, drink too much alcohol, have too much cold, heat, or rain, as well as a long-standing, deeply entrenched belief that the body has to die. There's a new documentary, I don't know if it's Netflix or Prime, this woman swimming with the octopus and talking about how the body's just not used to it. So we can be that cold, and we can swim underwater a long time, and we can, it's a matter of training. There's a guy, I forget his name, that teaches different breathing techniques, but we've become house cats, right? The body can get used to more cold and more extreme things, and so these are just ingrained patterns. The process of learning through limitation can occur because there is a time period between thinking a thought and the moment it manifests in physical form. This means that by the time something happens, you've forgotten that you thought it. And we need this, right? Because if we're running around instantly manifesting what we're thinking and before we're perfecting our thoughts, yeah, I wouldn't want to see that right now, even with my own thoughts, even by myself. Let us look at the classic example of a limiting pattern. It is generally considered that one should date or marry within one's own background, education, social and financial position, nationality, or even local community, race, religion, age group, and not with a close family relation. I didn't know this book was about that sort of thing. There are also conventions about the right looks, weight, height, physique, eye, and hair color. Quite restrictive, isn't it? As for learning on earth, you will find that if you remained aware that you are truly spirit, you wouldn't really gain a full learning from your experiences. This applies to the entire spectrum of learning while incarnate. Agreements and plans that are made with other team members prior to incarnating are usually forgotten around the time of the baby's birth. This applies to every being incarnating on earth, including the mission team. The only exception to this are some of the recent walk-ins who often retain a knowledge of their identity and purpose here. Let us look at why it wouldn't work if we remembered our pre-incarnational planning. Let's say that you sat around the planning table in the realm of spirit, making your agreements with a partner with whom you had chosen to share some learning experiences in the lifetime being planned. This will often be with someone you have had a close relationship with many times before. As you review previous incarnations, look at the areas where you did not love others unconditionally. You may see that you have a pattern of walking out on relationships. It seems as though you have little understanding or compassion of what it actually feels like when a loved one leaves. You also see that there is another area for growth for you, in having to experience the handling and overcoming of the various difficulties of a single parent and raising small children alone. Deciding to incorporate these two learning areas into the next incarnation, you plan with your partner to meet up at a specific time, fall in love, marry, and have 2 children. You arrange that when these children are aged 18 months and 3 years old, your husband will leave you for another woman. The financial situation is set up that there will be hardship for you to overcome. Incidentally, both the children and the other woman are sitting in on this planning meeting, interjecting details of what they require for their higher growth. So are all the other beings who are to play a role in this lifetime, such as your family and friends. Understand that the planning is quite intricate, as each of the team members is planning out their own goals and growth requirement as well. Sometimes there is a waiting period involved if a team member is not yet available. It may be that a person is already incarnate, but won't actually be needed to enter as a player in your incarnation until perhaps your 50th year. Uh-oh. They may be due to die out of their present incarnation several years before that, allowing for the period of time they will need afterwards to review the lifetime they have just left. They can agree to take part in your incarnation. The agreements are conducted through the higher self. Then you incarnate and everything happens according to plan. It does always go as originally planned, as you always have free... It doesn't always go as originally planned, as you always have free will and choice to change direction. So it's just kind of a vague idea, like your astrological chart. This is what you set up to learn, but there goes a squirrel. Oh, there's the candy shop over there. And then, you change your whole destiny. For me, it's, well, we won't say. Okay. The children are now at the right age for you to leave your partner. Can you see what would happen at this point if you were aware of the plan? You would be looking at your watch and saying to your husband something like, "Isn't it about time you left? You had planned on gaining spiritual strength from overcoming the trauma and hardship from this apparently unknown and unexpected experience in your life. How much do you think you would gain if you knew it was going to happen?" When you begin your first incarnation in the third dimensional world, such as Earth, its requirements are very general. It doesn't really matter what religion, nationality, or social class you are, because you haven't experienced any of them yet. The main requirement at this stage is that you are not involved in a situation that is too demanding or where you would need a good understanding of third-dimensional life in order to survive. A simple role is usually planned, involving a loving situation, perhaps where teamwork is important, rather than individual survival. An example of this might be incarnating as a mentally retarded child who is capable of giving and receiving much love without anything being demanded from him, or perhaps a child in a peaceful native tribe residing far from the civilized world. As you continue along this evolutionary path, each successive incarnation requires greater planning because there are fewer situations left to experience. The last few incarnations of life in a physical realm require a massive amount of intricate planning. They need to include the balancing of all karmic energies and work on all spiritual qualities not yet perfected, which may include integrity, harmony, love, truth, wisdom, honor, peace, compassion, devotion, purity, freedom, and courage. Everyone's life has an overall purpose with additional smaller goals within. When that purpose is achieved or entirely abandoned, the incarnation is complete. The goal of a lifetime does not have to be anything grand or spiritual. It can be absolutely anything in the early stages, with goals such as to learn how to function using a human body. Some of this cracks me up. To live with nature, to succeed at something, to experience a relationship with the opposite sex. Ew! What are they talking about? Just kidding. To be a contributing member of a team, and so on. This would lead up to larger goals in the final incarnation, such as to be in communication with the gentler, subtle energies of the Diva Kingdom, experiencing the totality of the elemental world, to experience absolute oneness with the universe, or to give to Earth in selfless service to God, to Goddess. The final incarnation requires a very intricate plan, needing specific beings to play co-created parts. All areas must be balanced out in the last incarnation. Of course, if the last remaining lessons are not learned or the various energies are not brought into balance, then another incarnation on some planet will have to be arranged. For the mission team on Earth, the situation is somewhat different. The vast majority had already completed their last incarnation in a third-dimensional world prior to coming to Earth on this mission. However, since coming here, they have experienced further incarnations with their usual ebbs and flows, which need to be brought back into balance and released, even though they were deliberately taken on. In the later incarnations, one recognizes the simplicity of life and begins to live in the divine flow. By the end of the last incarnation in physical form, an understanding has come of one's divine nature, and one comes into a state of peace and joy. From this wisdom, the illusionary world of the third dimension is accepted with humility and gratitude for the gift of learning that has been given. Now, the next dimension begins to become more real than the third. Looking over the whole learning process, we eventually begin to realize that we are all connected, like brother and sister to all life forms. We see that the different races, nationalities, customs, lifestyles, beliefs, and religions bring a great richness to life in a third-dimensional world. One can use the analogy of a salad. We could look at the wonderful qualities of the red tomatoes, green lettuce, orange, carrot, purple beetroot, and yellow sweet corn, each bringing its own unique color, vitamins, minerals, texture, and flavor to make the whole complete. We each follow a different path, learning in our own way in order to bring that wisdom back to the whole. There are millions of different ways to do this. There are many different paths to discover, many healing methods, and various ways to experience life. Each of these ways is a form of learning and experience, and none of them is a right or wrong way to live our life, but simply one we have chosen to experience. In this place of wisdom, we can allow everyone his or her choice without judging the rightness of that choice. If there was only one way to do something, there would only need to be one person. All right, let's stop that one there. And Have a great day, and consider donating to our church at bbgoddesschurch@gmail.com. I'm not a robot. Have a great day. Goddess bless.